Hey guys, this is Simon with Trade and Perform Coaching doing the trade review for Friday. Let's see, what was Friday? Friday was the 19th. So let's jump right into it. So a couple of things that we were looking for out of the gate to make sure that we had a couple of things not happen on Friday. First of all, open drive higher and a continuation from Thursday was a concern. Also, the focus, admittedly, for the day was on the long side trade, but there was a caveat to that. The focus is on the long side trade as long as we held above 2110, right? I felt that 2110 and holding above equated to a breakout below 2110, as tweeted and stated numerous times, probably put us back into the range. That being said, first concern out of the gate, we gap down, and let's just break it down step by step to make it pretty easy. So first step, we did not get half gap or gap fill at all. Both of those got blown out of the water. Okay. Secondly, coming into the day, what was the size of the rotation? Well, we came from approximately 2112, let's call it for sake of conversation, down to 2107. That's a 5-point rotation. And as you can see, here's the end of the first hour right here. Let's see if we can get over to that. Okay. So this is the end of the first hour. On days when we have, in my view, a sub 7 or 8-point rotation, again, let me say it again. On days when we have a sub 7 or 8-point rotation within the first hour, most of those days tend to be balanced days and slow, grindy days. So we have a couple of clues right out of the gate. First of all, we have an inability to get gap fill. We have an inability to get half gap. We're trading below 2110 right out of the gate, and we have a sub 5-point rotation. So the 5-point rotation is really what kills the day for me, because it is very hard for me. Normally I don't take trades within the first, let's call it the first half hour for the most part. Secondly, with the lack of rotation, normally what I'm trying to achieve off of each of these zones is a 2-point rotation, right? That's my target. First time into the zone, 2 points up. Now, from that perspective, the day went well, right? Even though we hit the zones early, it came right to 2107. We rotated up from 21.7. Obviously, it was able to achieve its 2 points relatively easily. But that was really, up until London close, that was really it for the morning. You can see we just kind of sat here and formed this wedge, very slow forming wedge. And you can also see we broke to the downside. Now, I want to take things and kind of pit them in perspective to this point in the day. We're coming off a day, if we look at the prior chart, prior to coming to this point, we get an open, very little counter rotation down, and pretty much straight up all the way into the middle of New York lunch, right? So what's the one thing I want to avoid? Well, I want to avoid getting run over to the upside, and it is very difficult as a trader. I think it's easiest to trade in an environment where we're getting some kind of predictable behavior from the market on a day in, day out basis. When we have a market that drives straight up one day, the balance, the sideways balance, that's not a shock. This activity here, this does not come as a shock. It's normal to get balance after you've had a straight up day and consolidate sideways. The difference being here is that the majority of the price action, instead of being a sideways consolidation, you can see as we broke into the afternoon, we came in and attempted to re-auction a lot of the poorly auctioned area. But as we pull this in and we look in here, let's see if I can do that. Make this a little bit smaller. Here we go. It is, at least in my eyes, if we're having a breakout market, it is unusual, from my perspective, to get all of this re-auctioned. What we see in a strong market is we have the drive up, we have the sideways consolidation, we test this lower A area, this 2110, and then we continue with the breakout. It just simply failed for Friday. Now, here's the difference. First of all the zones worked extremely well through the course of the day. Let's look at it from a zone perspective first of all. So we opened up. Obviously, no one gets clipped out of the gate. This is Globex high, Globex low. There's almost no rotation to that area there's no reason to take that trade. This is the first zone where we had good rotation into it, and we get a beautiful rotation up to 2110. Second time into the zone is not a trade for me in most cases, and in this particular case, it still gave a rotation, but again, the focus just using the zones is for first time in. This is the first time to this trade location, this 2102 and 3/4. You can see that we rotated. Where do we rotate all the way back to? From 2102 and 3/4 down to 2101. So less than 2 points of heat from the first touch of this area from the backside, right? Comes in. Oh, I didn't mean to move that. I'm going to replace it. I believe it was right 2102.75. There we go. First time in the zone, a little bit of heat, but clearly it gives a 2-point rotation back to the upside, right? Now, I don't know how to address this. There's 2 ways I have of trading. The simplest way I have of trading is first touch of the zones. However, the market has made the zones more difficult to take as of late. And the reason for that is we've had a massive amount of inconsistency. What do I mean by inconsistency? And I'm going to try my best to keep a constant train of thought here and keep this relatively brief. So let's pull up just a blank chart. Here we go. Just a second to pull it up. And let's go to a 30-minute chart. Okay, we are in a massive range. This chart's going back 2 months. The bottom of the range, here's top of the range, roughly, 2120. Bottom of the range, 2170, roughly, 2070, excuse me. Roughly, the bottom of the range. We've become extremely viscous through the middle of the range, right, which was essentially everything from 2100 down to roughly 2080. We've traded through here relatively easily. On a day-by-day basis, some days we're coming in with open drives lower, some days we're coming in with open drives higher, but there's no consistency in terms of if I see a rotation lower, I know we're going to pump it higher. If I see a rotation higher, I know that sellers are going to come back in and push it lower. That's created a lot of difficulty in getting any kind of rhythm going day by day. Let me contrast that to going back a couple of months ago, and I'm going to pull that up here real quick. Compare that with this period of time. Here last October, November, every rotation down got pushed back up. Pretty much any push lower, all you had to do was focus on looking for good long entry, and you got pushes up. Conversely, on the pushes down, all you got to do is look for pushes up, and the market stayed with a rhythm over a period of days, right? And we can see this is generally true in most markets, right? You can see here, almost every dip down got a beautiful rotation back to the upside. When we went to balance, even within the balance market, every push down pretty much got a reception back to the upside. Compare this market to what we've had as of late. There we go. One day we'll get an open drive higher, straight up. Next day we get pretty much a push straight down. Next day we gap down. We start with an initial drive lower, trade up all day. Next day we trade up, push down all day. Next day we gap, drive higher. Next day we push down, immediate response back up. And then we kind of go into this balanced market. And then we kind of go into a pattern where we're almost literally on a day-by-day basis flipping short, long, short, long, short, long. Maybe there's just some traders that are better than I am. I've been doing this for 20 years. For me, it's very difficult for me to figure out when the market's flipping day by day, which side I really, really want to push. Why is that important for me? It's important for me because the type of trading that I do is very leveraged trading, which means I have to have a high rate I have to have a very high win rate. Essentially, I have to maintain close to a 70% win rate, or my profitability falls off sharply, and below 60%, I'm losing money when you add in commission costs and everything else. So I have to maintain a high win rate. It's more difficult for me to maintain a high win rate in a couple of factors. When there's lack of rotation, right? When there's less predictability in how the market's going to respond to rotations down and rotations back up, right? And then I have to put a time limit. It's the last factor. The time factor involved in me being able to get a scale off is very, very important to my style of trading. Now, if I were not trading leverage, the time factor wouldn't matter so much. I could just generally pick an area, and if it didn't work out, it wouldn't be such a big deal, but I am. So I want to cover the trades that I actually went through during the day really quickly here. That's the 20 seconds charts. Let's go back to the 19th. Okay. So first of all, I recognize that we had a potential open drive lower. I did not think that drive lower would continue. I initially took a trade out of the zone. Where did I take this trade out of the zone to the long side? I actually believe it was in this first push lower down here, and before I could get a rotation back up, 10 minutes passed. I was unable to get out of the trade with a profit, and I took the trade flat. Was I upset that it took a small dip lower and then pushed back up? No. Why? I'm committed to reducing the amount of anxiety within a trade that I take. How do I do that? First of all, I know exactly what I'm looking for in a scalp setup. I called the trade setup, and it sat there for 10 minutes, and it really never gave me any heat. It just never rotated up high enough for me to get the P&L. And what was I looking for? Frankly, I was looking for us to come up and fill this gap to the upside, and it just never occurred. I could have taken the trade out for a little bit less, for a small profit, meaning instead of being patient and waiting for the trade to bust up. But I really felt, based on the strength of the market prior day, that we would follow through back to the upside. Of course, that was not to be, but the trade was successful. I followed my time limitations. I took the proper size trade and essentially was able to rent it for free. The rest of the day really never presented a trade for me. This was the first time into the zone, and obviously I didn't get the rotation at the zone because I was following my scalping rules instead of the zone rules. Next, this did not provide an area for me. As a matter of fact, it got so slow and grindy, I had no desire to trade in this area. And here's the mental trick that the market will do to most people. Look, there's very few people, let's say unless you nail the short right in here, right? There's very few people that can sit through from 10:30 in the morning all the way till 12:30, 2 hours for a day trader to sit through to capture this move back down and then ultimately this move to the downside. If you look here, unless you took this at 21.11, if you look at the trade from 21.11 and you sat in this for 2 hours, let's say, right? You're still only up 3 points, maybe 2.5 after 2 hours in the trade. It's not a huge move. The patience required is huge, okay? I did take a long at the very end of the day, and you can see, and I'll show you the private Twitter feed here. I posted that trade right at the end of the day. Okay, getting long 21.03, stop 2 to 2.5 points, right? Then you can see I posted this. The interval here was sub 10 minutes. I really wanted this trade to work out within 10 minutes. And I said, I'd like to see this work in the next few minutes, or I'll be out, or I'll be forced to exit, right? And you can see this, the stop was 2 to 2.5 points here, right? You can see that I, at this point, moved the stop to 21.0150. So my stop's a 1.5 on the full trade once I've exceeded 7-8 minutes. Then I went ahead and cut the trade size in half. That was flat. That was approximately 13 minutes into the trade. Stopped remain in place at 21.0150. So at this point, look how I've managed it. Initially, I take a large amount of risk, and I have a relatively tight stop. I've tightened up that stop, and I've cut my risk. In other words, where I'm taking this trade is actually right in here, right in front of this 21.02 3/4. I take it at 21.03. And you can see we sit here for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, right? Now, normally I'm able, if I go back and look historically at my trades, I am able to hit my profit targets in well under 25 minutes. At this point, I've cut the trade in half. And yes, I do end up taking a stop at 21.0150, but it's basically turns out to be a 1.5 point stop on half size, the equivalent of a 3-tick stop on a full size trade. And what was I doing? I was giving myself an opportunity to get a rotation back up to this, what I thought would be somewhere between 21.06 and 21.09. Frankly, I thought we could make it all the way back up to retest in a short squeeze. I was playing for getting late shorts trapped in this area. Now, the theory was correct. We obviously got a very nice rotation back to the upside with about 30 minutes left. Unfortunately, I did not survive the time restraints that I put on the trade, but my risk management was very good. Now, I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, we closed near the low of the day. This close came after the 3 o'clock market close has pretty much got a ton of pressure on the close. I have to assume that has to do something with fears or concerns over Greece and any announcements I might make over the weekend. Secondly, it's an extremely rare event to close at the low of the day. Now, oddly enough, we close at 20.97 3/4 at the low of the day, or a couple of ticks off the low of the day. But if you're a trader, a professional trader, and you're not a swing trader, right? In other words, you're just not a trader that was going to sit here and carry the trade over the weekend. The odds of you getting a close on the low of the day are extremely low. As a matter of fact, if you'll go back and look at your trades, if you try to press your shorts at the end of the day, the majority of days you're going to see you get smoked at the end of the day. You give back anywhere from 2 to 7, 8, 9, 10 points at the end of the day. It's just not a good strategy. I guess my point there is those who traded for the end of the day, they got their win. Caution for most day traders. If you're trying to push for a close at the low of the day, that is a very, very difficult trick to pull off and very rare. Easily enough research to go back and look and see how many times we actually get tagged, even anywhere close to the low. Usually we'll close about the midpoint or the lower 2/3 of the day's trading range, but not the lower third of the trading range. And then the last piece is there's just not many days where we have a day where we drove straight up one day and we just give back the entire move the following day. So sure enough, once we got below 2110, sellers gained overall control. We were never able to get back above and hold above that 2110, and lesson learned. So I really hate that this took so long, so I'm going to kind of go back in and summarize really quickly. Out of the gate, we had lack of gap fill, lack of half gap. We traded below the 2110 and held below the 2110, and sellers were able to gain control over the market. It really looked to me like we were going to play to the upside. The most important thing that I took away from the day was that even though I was trading from the long side only, I suffered literally almost no damage to the downside in terms of drawdowns. I took one very small drawdown. Also, I want to point something else out. I pointed out in the last hour, I'm pretty sure I posted this, so I'm going to look again. And I said, okay, here we go. Long may still set up here, last hour, so it's very aggressive in nature. Make sure you're following your written trade plan. Okay, why do I put that in there? Let's talk about it for a second. No one really likes to talk about when they take losing trades, especially on Twitter or anywhere else. Okay, first of all, last hour, 80% of all algos fire in the last hour. You're competing against computers. Very, very difficult. You're dealing with the psychological factor of having time tick against you, right? The last piece is quite often you'll be very tired at the end of the day. If you've been trading since the market opened, by the time you get to the end of the day, mentally, it's very hard to keep a high level of sharpness and continue to make good trading decisions. Last piece, if you get stopped in the last hour of the day, it can be emotionally very upsetting. And who wants to carry? You can have a great day and wipe out your entire trade in the last hour. What does that all add up to? If you're trading in the last hour, first of all, make sure you have the emotional resilience to handle the setbacks that can come with trading in the last hour. For most people, it can really ruin a day, raise your anxiety levels, and force you to carry that into the next trading session, right? The next piece is competing against computers is difficult. Third, you are dealing with a pack mentality where whether they get trapped to the long side or the short side, the moves can be very sharp and very quick in the last hour. So I gave fair warning. I said the long may set up. It's last hour, so it's very aggressive in nature. It's up to the trader, each and every individual trader, to know how aggressive am I in my trades? Am I someone that needs to trade before the last hour, or am I capable of trading the last hour and keeping a high level of sharpness? Secondly, I respected my time limits on the trade. I reduced my risks. I cut my trade size as the trade continued to not develop. And then the last piece, I still got great trade location for this trade. It just did not work out in my time frame. So I followed all of my trading rules. I had no problem walking out at the end of the day the way that I did. I actually consider it to be quite a good day, especially considering I was looking long all day long, right? To have a minimal amount of damage or even a successful trading day on a day where you're looking to the long side and we keep getting pounded to the short side, you have to count that as a win. At least I do in my book. And then the last piece, and I can't stress this enough for all traders, be nice to yourself as a trader, man. I have so many people who shred themselves over every little trading mistake. And I'm talking about traders who make money, who are successful, they beat the crap out of themselves for no reason whatsoever. Always go back in. You can list out what you did wrong. There's lessons to be learned there, but there's also lessons to be learned from what you did well. If you're not nice to yourself, if you're not highlighting what it is that you are doing well, you're asking for your own butt to get kicked going forward in the future, and it's a bad deal. Anyways, my name is Simon. I'm with Trade Review For Fri coaching. I hope this helped. This market is not the easiest market in the world to be trading. Straight up one day, straight down the next. Stay patient with yourself. Follow your written trading rules. If you have your trading rules written, you're ahead of 90% of retail traders out there who don't have their written trading rules. And then the last piece is, in this process, right? Stay in a learning mode. You can only stay in a learning mode if you're trading within your bounds, meaning you're always nice to yourself. You always trade within your means. You always trade in an environment you're comfortable with trading, right? And then the last piece is you have an underlying theory, an underlying structure to your trading system, meaning there's written rules, there's a support system built in, there's a review system built in, and you're consistent day in, day out with how you approach the market. That's what I try to achieve. That's what I try to teach my coaching clients to achieve. Anyways, my name is Simon. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, and y'all have a great night. Talk to y'all soon.